And one of the things I haven't faced in the Victory in the West system before is happening here, where there's so much space that it's almost impossible to defend against a rush somewhere, like, say, to Foggia, which looks like it's worth a lot, but do I really want to go there? You know? Obviously, I could grab a port over here. That would be useful. That's probably where the port assault is going to take place. If anything. And that's probably what it's meant for. But anyway, it means that the Germans can't really form a line to prevent anything, but they can form mobile forces. And this is a very, very different feel from any of the other games in the system. I'm not trying to create a solid line or anything like that. It feels more like an OCS style game because of that. And that's kind of interesting, because those continuous lines that you see in the older games probably aren't very realistic. They feel more like World War I than they do World War II to me. Even though, you know, most of us grew up with the World War II classics being of just that nature. But what it means is more advantage on the attack, more emphasis on counterattacks being important and being more mobile. And here I'm picking off attacks. Well, actually I haven't made it here. I had to divert one of my divisions, or what there is of it, to this side because of the threat of these German units sliding in from the side here. And we'll see what happens with them. They could be a serious threat, really. And it's kind of this, well, can I be cautious? No, I gotta chase him down. I gotta try to make it, I think. I don't know. You know, there's this risk. I mean, I could lose my supply source if I'm not careful. Over here, the Brits are having no trouble at all. And there's kind of this feeling of, I can't defend. Now, I'm used to playing defense in games where playing defense means setting up those big lines, falling back, setting them up again, falling back. So the other games felt a lot more familiar to me. And this, I think it's going to be more the handcuff of, geez, I can't make that attack. That's too audacious, you know? I can't push that far. I'm opening myself up to a counterattack. Which is a very different kind of thinking, and it's hard for me to come to grips with that. However, it is very appealing about this particular design to see that kind of happening. Something I wasn't expecting out of it. And, you know, sometimes the unexpected is good. I think I'm not going to like it as the Germans, because I have to try to adapt to that mobile defense concept. But maybe it means I try to get an OCS game to the table soon. One thing I forgot to mention, these guys are out of range of the unit that's being attacked. However, even without going in close, they're in range to do the extended range roll. I'm going to have to look up the rule for that. I don't remember it. Basically, there's just a chance I get the shifts. And then also, this is turn 5, the Germans are going to start lobbing missiles. Which, again, I think that's just a 1 in 6 chance they knock something out. Do I go for carriers? Well, I don't know. You know, probably because these heavy ships are a little iffy. I should be getting some of these around. This one's actually being used, but I could sail this one up there. I don't think I'm going to be there quickly enough that I need to commit another ship yet, and I may want to make 2 attacks near the coast. Who knows? But let's send some more ships over, because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be needing too much here. I think the 2 monitors are probably most of what I need, so we'll send those over. One of the Foggia rules, it gets rid of the anti-ship missiles. So the Allies did not get their ship in here, but they succeeded here and here. This one didn't require a roll. And forgot to mark this one before. And they succeeded in their attacks up here, and you can see they got a breakthrough here and surrounded this. I'm not using any reserve markers so far. The problem is I kind of want to get a lot of oomph into that initial fight, especially with the hidden combat units and everything like that, and not knowing what's in a stack. It's tough. It's tough to make the decision that, yeah, I'm going to keep some units in reserve to exploit. And I'm not sure how much they would do. You know, getting that extra shift for the divisional integrity and all that. It's just, it's very hard for me to commit. Over here, even with pretty fair odds, I was over on like the 6-1 table or something, the Brits got pushed back. And now there's a 1 in 6. I'm going to go for a carrier because, honestly, I think that the big boats are going to be out of the game for a little bit pretty soon. Although there is this possibility. And we got a 6. That has no effect whatsoever on this, right? No effect. Sometimes a 6 is a problem for the Germans. I'm trying to remember what it was for. I don't know. There was something where they get a penalty for it. Essentially, their anti-ship missiles become ineffective. First of all, Foggia falls. But also, from what I can tell, due to this, +1 missile DRM. Again, this is different. Air or missile DRMs increase the chance of results by +1. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. In addition, there are rules that seem to indicate that missiles and air points come to you. And maybe that's what it's supposed to mean, is that you get a missile or an air point, depending on things. Again, I have the feeling that maybe this wasn't intended. A +1 is bad on the missiles and air point commitment. So if it's actually a +1 die roll modifier, that pretty much negates your chance of ever having a missile work. So I'm thinking that these are actually good things that you get. But again, I'm just making up rules, you know, the way the game's written. That is completely in doubt. There's a hint somewhere that the Germans are going to get missiles and air points, and they don't have to pay support points for those. There is a clear indication on the chart that it works differently. I guess bake the game the way you want it. For me, I think I'm going to take them as extra points that'll be available. The missiles only work in the AM turns. I don't know if that means my extra missiles have to be saved up for AM turns. AM turns are probably always odd, the way things are. All right, let's go to the axis and figure out what I'm going to do, but it can't just be pull back. That doesn't seem to work. On the other hand, I don't know if it can be attack. I'm not really that strong. And I'm very, very cautious in these games. Let's see if we can do counterattacks. Goering coming this way, threatening Salerno, which would be a big boost for the Brits over here, if they can get that. And I think they still need a die roll for it. They're on their second attempt or whatever. We're kind of making up these rules as we go, right? Over here I spread out to creating a defensive line. This is really to protect Foggia, sent an armor down there to garrison it, and Panzer Grenadier here. It means I'm kind of abandoning these artillery. I hate to do that. That's 2 artillery. That's a lot of firepower, but I just don't have enough oomph to get in there and do anything about it, I don't think. And this guy flying away. Over here, trying to shift units to get in here and launching a counterattack there where maybe we can have something good there too. And I do indeed still have, should be 2 better points available, because the airfields is still pretty low. We'll see what happens. We lost every single battle we made. This one, at least we only had to retreat, but these guys both lost battles where they had to take actual casualties and lost a bunch of support points. Kind of the, yeah. You know, attacking is hard in this system. I'm outnumbered. I really don't feel like I've got the power to do it. And that was my impression, and it's correct. How do I get myself the power? Well, by denuding an area, by giving up large swaths of territory. What? I mean, here I already pulled, you know, a Panzer Grenadier unit off the line that could have been helping down here, and it would have been big if I had, you know, gotten some success here. I'd be threatening the one U.S. port, and that would kind of force this to come back. As it stands, now I'm sitting in the middle of a pincer. I may force it to come back again anyway, but it may not be the best thing in the world for me. It may end up delaying the U.S. advance, though. Over here, this did absolutely nothing. The Goering units probably should be running off to join the other units of the division, but, you know, I thought easy pickings here, and again, threatening a port seemed like a good idea. It just didn't work out that way for me. And we'll put these here and be back later. And now for their aggression, the Germans are going to pay a price. Strike against this thing. This isn't really an aggressive position. This is part of their defensive line, but leaving him back here to defend that. I sent the other commandos, because they share support points with the other Americans, up here, grab this Axis control space. Remember, I don't have to divide the 5th Army up, even though it's 2 nationalities. It's the 8th Army that can't combine with it. Attacks here, attacks there, attacks there. Some of these may be a little weaker than you'd want. I gotta remember my airpoints. Forgot to have those. And then also an attack down here. We've got possible naval support on some of these as well. And the Allied attacks, an interesting bag. Over here we were successful. Now I gotta be careful. Once again, Toronto might be open. However, this stuff is moving through 3 terrain on this map. The mechs only get to move a couple of hexes, and I gotta spend half my movement to just break away. I'm not going anywhere. And that's kind of what I thought. That boat came in. Over here we had a mixed result. These guys flung the U.S. back there, and I should have done this one first. I'm not sure why. Because I think it looked stronger, but I'm not positive of that. It had 2 big units attacking. Anyway, it did succeed, and I pushed them down the road. There's a little bit of a problem here. I think I'm illegally parked. No? No. It's level 3 terrain there, but I got to be careful. The level differences are weird. So like this says level 3 here, but it's level 4 down here. And you can see the coloring, it's really hard to tell. It's not that, you know, stark contrast that makes it easy to tell what you're playing on. As somebody mentioned, it's a beautifully shaded map. Yeah, it is really lovely. They did a great job artistically on it. In terms of presenting it as a design for, you know, old eyes trying to play a war game. I don't know. I mean, there's something nice about playing on a pretty map. Anyway, leaving that alone. The Brits blew up those artillery and charged forward here, and they were also successful here. I don't see any threats really anywhere except to the poor Germans, who probably shouldn't have stuck their noses where they didn't belong. Every time I try to do something as a defender on mobile defense, I feel like, yeah, that's not the way I understand how to do defense, even if it is more accurate or whatever. I just don't know how to pull it off. But them's them apples. And I think we're going over to the German side. Now they're going to get another pile of units. Let's see if I can waste those too. Muted tones also make it very, very difficult to look at the map broadly and say, where's the high terrain? It's over here. I got to get that light colored stuff is the high terrain. The darker stuff is actually the lower terrain, which feels a little weird to me coming from Sicily. But again, you can kind of get used to it. It's just my brain is having trouble making that inversion quickly. The forces kind of in flight as much as they can. These guys would love to have swung around and make an attack, but it's almost impossible to get that kind of maneuverability in this game. Again, the rest of the series, plenty of that. Hey, disengage, whip around, hit somebody on the flank. Realistic or not, Again, it's more the way my mind ends up thinking from these games. But I do actually think this is more realistic. Units that are pressed and under combat aren't going to just whip around and hit you on the flank, you know. So I'm actually getting very impressed with the play of this game and what it's representing. It's the fucking rule book and the presentation. Somebody really dropped the ball on this one. These guys retreating. These guys kind of just hosed. They're out of supply. I don't have to worry about attacking. Again, unlike the earlier games, but I'm not getting away, you know. Slept the artillery up there. The Fallschirm trying to make its way here. The artillery had a problem. Basically, this is level 4 terrain. I can't walk through that with a mechanized unit. So I got to go into a transit track, and it's not the transit track I necessarily want to be on. I can go from one transit to another, though, and I think I saw some of that going on down here. I don't know. I'm moving a lot into the transit tracks. These guys in the ready space, they'll be coming out. Forces here, these guys are in the ready space now. Over here we have the one German attack, Hermann Goering again striking, and I've shortened this line up to send the rest of, I think, Goering to get to Foggia. Make sure I don't lose that, you know, just due to these Brits breaking through and doing some crazy shit. All right, well, we got one battle. I got a couple of planes, but they only work on offense for the Germans, and kind of iffy on that as well. Heck, and it's becoming kind of a life or death thing for these guys. Oops, forgot this one. I don't know what the fuck to do with this. This is level 3. I could actually slip out of here. 2, 4, 6. 18. Not the best of places to be, but they failed again. And, you know, if these guys swing down, that's it for them. But that gives time for these guys to maybe do something if they want to withdraw or something. Right now, this attack was initially made to threaten Salerno, but at this point they're kind of bottled up in there, and they're going to have a hard time getting out of there just because of the ugliness of the terrain. And it's, I don't know. I think they're making errors by trying to bust through that lighter unit. And I think that's it for the turn. Okay, so here we are, and I don't know how far in. It looks like 3.5 days. This is probably the morning of the 4th day because odd number turns are morning turns. And that makes sense, 3.5 to 4. We got some odd stuff going on. First of all, Brits launching an attack up here. Again, I'm just trying to whittle this down, cause problems over here, and keep Salerno from falling and losing my artillery and stuff like that. So in this case, I'm launching a divisional attack on these guys with some artillery support, maybe navies. U.S. finishing off this out of supply unit if they can. I'm using my big division for that because, and here's where the weirdness comes in, I moved into the track. We're going to have a roll to see if I find let's see, are we, yeah, I could find these units and attack them. Likewise, up here, the Brits could find this unit and attack it. They're on the same track. It's kind of just a random die roll, but at least one side has to get contact and want the engagement, or both sides. Actually, I think both sides have to get contact, and one side has to want it. I don't know. I'll look at that, obviously, before I resolve those attacks. But these are separate attacks that could happen. And then over here, the Brits are continuing to pick on those Panzer Grenadiers, swinging around with a somewhat better defense for Toronto. But, you know, I mean, it's just not trivial for the Germans to get around and make an attack. I thought, hey, I had enough troops I could do this. It's turning out I do not. I'm just not able to get, you know, like the Fallschirm up there in time or anything like that. We'll see if I can pick something off, but so far it hasn't been working. The Brits have been able to get attacks, and the Germans not so much. And yeah, we got some possibilities of navies getting in range here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm in one of the mine layers. I think the mines are gone now, actually. So all we have to do is succeed in the range extension rolls. So yeah, over here I'm gonna try to do this combat first. I basically roll 2 dice. If it's 2 6s, it's an automatic attack. But honestly, if both sides end up with engage, the U.S. can make its attack, which is what it wants to do. We get a 2, that's an evasion. As long as there was a successful did not attack by either side, or whatever, as long as we hit the evade range on either side, there will not be a battle. And wait, if either player rolls a 6, so somebody rolled a 6. Oh, we got an automatic engage. There's no choice. You're not given a value. It's not like one person's trying to invade and the other's trying to engage or anything like that. The rule is actually, I thought it was double 6s, but the rule is if either player gets a 6, the engagement happens. Otherwise, it's at the discretion of both the players if they both get an engage roll, which is a little weird. Get quite the result. We won it. We got a D3. Obviously better than getting an A result. This allows the Germans to just slide up to here, which is where they actually want to be. They're not ready to leave yet. There's possibility for the U.S. To attack them, but they have to make it to the ready track. They're further away than the Germans were when they retreated. Whatever, there's some weird abstractions and stuff going on these tracks. But yeah, we did not catch them. And the success of the attacks, here we had a bit of success. Nothing too huge. Here we already talked about. Over here we destroyed the unit. None of it with overruns, though. The Brits were successful at finding and hunting down the German unit, which was over on the ready side of things. And over here we had a success as well. So pretty much good attacks all around, except for this one, which just ended up being a so-so result. They were able to get away. Brits aren't able to advance out of here. These transit tracks, combat on them kind of doesn't work. Obviously, hey, he can retreat from this transit back to this, but they can't advance that far. In fact, they've got to wait a couple of turns before they get there. Well, who knows what's going on in them, but still, some weird shit can happen that you're kind of like, yeah, that wouldn't happen if there was actually board there. That just couldn't happen. It does give the enemy a chance, the weaker force in any case, a chance to kind of get out of the area a little bit more easily than they would if there was actual terrain to maneuver in. That's going to put it on the Axis side, and we're seeing a fair, it looks like the Allies are doing a pretty damn good job right now. There's all kind of things on here that I kind of don't remember. One of them, support deprecation. I don't think I've exceeded it. I think it's, if you spend 4 support points on a turn from a given army, you got a problem. Hey, I forgot to spend any off here. I bet you I spent a UK one. I did. That's what happened. Okay. If you spend too many points off a given army or whatever, you get this support deprecation and you get a penalty in support. And I don't think I've done that. I'm not sure. But I did notice something that I didn't know about at all, which is repair port damage costs support. Now, I've done that multiple times, and I obviously do not have the support to back that up. So the Allies have been a little bit more exuberant than the design expects them to be, and that may explain why they're doing kind of well. It would only be affecting this map. It wouldn't be affecting these guys. They have infinite support, basically. I don't really have a way of repairing that. It's hard when I'm faced with a big list, even in a chart form or something like that. It's hard to remember all the crap, and I can't really complain about this. I mean, I can, but I shouldn't, because I have this problem in so many games. When you face me with, like a bunch of modifiers in some of the combat systems, I just can't face a chart that's that big. I can remember 4 or 5 things, and other things, loss of Maori or Vetri. What are those? Those are the ports over here. Have they been, or beachheads, have they been lost? No, but, there's a victory point loss if I just go grab them, and that's like permanent if that gets cost. So there would have been a good reason to advance this way. Anyway, we're up to the Germans, and I got reinforcements coming in here on turn 7 that I don't know about. Map A or B, roads A through D. And with my view of how effective the counterattacks are, I didn't launch when I'm falling back here. This is not particularly terrain I want to be in. I'm looking at trying to defend map B. Now map B is also not particularly terrain I want to get in, but these transfer boxes are just too dangerous. If the Allies can break into one, they can sweep around and do so much ugliness that, I'm trying to slow them down here, and I got a lot of my forces based there, but I am pulling the reinforcements down here and these others to try to deal with this British force. And I've got the paratroopers pulling their way up here. These guys, mainly I've been moving things around in the transfer boxes to get them out of the way. Of course, leaving things open isn't terribly good, because it means the US is free to come storming across. But with the focus of my forces over here, and some of that's, I don't know, some of that's a lack of foresight. I could have certainly transferred stuff over. By the way, I did a ship torpedo trying to hit the carrier. That didn't do anything. And next turn is turn 8, which means we get to roll in the variable reinforcement table again and see what happens. But otherwise, we have finished this turn. I've overeaten, thrown too much wood today. And I had 3 trees cut down yesterday, and all cut into firewood, but I've been hauling them, and the trees around here are big. They're very big. So, and I'm weak. Okay. Bunch of playing around on the tracks. U.S. forces slipping into the ready side here. Pulled another division in to attack here. I haven't pulled the Brits out yet. Hold on that. But these guys moving into position to attack this. I'm kind of exposing that artillery. It might end up dying because of it, but, Oh, the variable reinforcements. The victory points have gotten to the point where I went from being way over here to on the 18 and up table in both cases. And I have 2 locations that give me a +1 on the table. It's impossible for the Germans to get anything anymore. The 18 and up comes from victory points where we have like 19 of them, and then a couple of airfields. We still haven't done much with airfields. The Brits grabbed down here for the extra victory points. That didn't count in at that point. And I haven't moved everything here either. These guys were able to move another space to get their artillery into place. This is a little dangerous. Hitting this artillery to prevent it from being able to support. I'm going to have to do a soak off here. If I succeed, I can advance into there and then get the divisional integrity there. If I don't succeed in pushing that thing, I'm in trouble. But it looks pretty likely. And I've got possible naval support there. Moving my ships around to prepare for the attack over on that coast. And what else do we have here? I don't know. I am going to want to get the assault port opened up here as soon as possible. There's one here, which I can open up. There's also this, which would be potential. However, that is further away from my main axis. I'm probably going to send this engineer over to just grab that and do whatever. this is more valuable for me to launch the attack over towards Foggia. And, you know, I mean, really, the heart of this whole thing seems to be the defense of Foggia at this point. I don't know what the total victory point spans are on the scenario. Kind of don't really want to know. I'm pretty sure the Axis are getting their ass kicked because I can't mount a good mobile defense. I'm good at the static defenses, or at least I think I am. And I usually think I'm pretty lousy on offense. But what I'm feeling here is, well, mounting an offense when you're the weaker person is just, it feels so alien to my feeling of how to cope with war games. Even though I have a local superiority here, I've been trying to do a coordinating and whatnot, and I'm just not able to launch the attacks that I want to. So yeah, I still have to move these guys. Or did I shift these already? Jeez, fucked if I can remember. I think I shifted these over. I think they actually did move. Which means that we're all set here. And do I need to move more boats? I want to keep a couple of monitors in place. In fact, actually here, I may have room for 2 of them there, so we'll take a look at whether or not I've got shots at those. And here I might have room for that battleship. Oh no, this battleship's got a chance to engage. I think this one's too far away. Yeah, he's just one short of maximum range, you know, may be able to hit. Okay, so start things off. The American attack did not happen. These poor false humor. The attack over here, push them back. They might be able to squeeze out of there. Let's see, 9. Is that a secondary road or primary? That looks like primary. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We're going to be able to knock out the artillery there. And equally bad, there might be a chance at hitting this artillery here too. And that's a big deal. Artillery, you know, on attack, 2 artillery is 2 shifts, right? So, you know, that might kind of cut the capability of launching a reasonable offensive from this general area. It seemed like a good idea. We pinned these guys down. There's another option, though. The Germans might want to, and they might be able to do both. They might want to launch an attack in here to try to free these poor units that are trapped against the edge of the board. They can't get out. I wish there was like a transit box here to just move along the roads there. And I'm getting kind of close to those 4 attacks. Now here I do not have to make an attack. But here I'm going to make one. Built a line coming over here. Shifted units up into here. These guys getting ready to join that line. We're not going to let the British just crack through, but they can just slip up here and then it's all gone. It's like I have no way of defending against transit box movement. All that is it's delayed. There's a lot of airfields here, and that could be real important. I haven't done any emergency bombing yet. I don't know. I think it costs support points, and I can't afford them. And it costs victory points, maybe. I don't know. No, it just costs support points, but I do not have the support points that I can spare. So it's fair that I'm not doing it. I can actually use my 2 planes here for the Germans, making the attack against here and the attack against the artillery. We're just trying to wipe out the Allied artillery because they will be slowed down by losing those column shifts. Of course, the Navy coming in here is going to open everything up in an ugly sort of way. Okay, so massing the Panzer Grenadier Division against this, boom, we got thrown back. These guys still isolated in trouble. They don't have to counterattack. This game doesn't require it. What else? We did pick off the artillery, one of the 2, and we killed one of them over here as well. I don't think this was a good turn. My withdrawal has been delayed And now there's the opportunity to either pick this off or run over and pick that off. I don't think I can do both, and this one's the safer choice because, uh-oh, Salerno's up. In fact, I probably could have just driven down and cut their supply. I don't think that way. I'm like so concentrating on trying to get these units out of there, I could have just driven down because they were too tightly packed in here. My thoughts in the wrong place. And oh well. And oops, I forgot to bring in a reinforcement. It's just an engineer. It's probably not going to mean much. I took it instead of I took it as a loss instead of the armored unit that was that I had taken as a loss. The reason is the armored units actually do something. Yes, the engineers actually do something too. If I wanted to build fortifications, for example, they'd be great. But it's very hard to find anything worth fortifying. I could build a fortified line around Foggy and they could still, like, you know, I can't build like lines along the river and expect them to do anything. I could build a line right around Foggia and then it would end up as a siege, you know. So, and whatever units are busy building that line, they would just be stuck there. So I'm like, screw it. The special rules in this, I might be misplaying by not using them very much, but man, they are just so painful to cope with. You know, building the fortifications takes a couple of turns, and the way the map's set up, there's just too many ways to slip through using those transit boxes and stuff. There's no place that's safe. You know? I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. It feels to me like the transit boxes were a real mistake. Especially, you know, the attempts to put combat in them. Yeah, it feels a little weird at times, but the fact that you can't really stop someone in them, you know, the only way you can stop them, well, I guess maybe they're forced to attack in an engaged situation. That would be kind of ugly. I don't know. It's hard to decipher everything in the rules. But I think it was definitely a mistake not to run down and kill Salerno. That would have caused chaos. And these forces could have swept back in. I think it's a good thing that I didn't, in the sense that the chaos didn't get caused, but I don't know, it's probably handing another advantage over to the Allies. But anyway, we're getting to play it out. There's things I like about this, there's things I don't like about it. The biggest thing I don't like is the rules are a mess, and there's a chaos of additional chrome for it. But it's showing that this core system can do things that I wasn't expecting it to be able to do. So the Brits detached a unit to kind of watch this thing. That's enough because of the disengagement costs, I think, to keep me from losing Salerno. Not absolutely sure. I mean, that still has 9, but I'd have to move here. Oh, I can't tell the level of the terrain, so it's kind of hard to make that decision. I think this may be level 1 now. It looks like it's level 2. It's really hard to tell the level of the terrain. So that's level 2, which means it's much, much more expensive. So that would be 15 movement points to get to here, 16, 17. I could send a little armored car a little further. And there's some rule where you get to roll a die for armored cars. I think that's the exploitation movement. So far, I've not used exploitation at all. I'm not good at thinking that way. And unless I'm like, oh, I overwhelmed the opponent, pretty sure I won't need the extra troops. And boy, I could gain something. I mean, everything just has to fall perfectly for me to want to put things in reserve in this game. Honestly, I had similar feelings in Desert Fox too, so this may be more my shortcomings. And then we're going to concentrate on trying to destroy this isolated unit here. Last turn there would have been a possibility, I think, for the Germans to grab Salerno, and I missed it. So here the Brits are being dicky. They could have just come out here, faced this line, everything would be troublesome, but instead they slide up here. They're going to try to beat these up. Even if they fail, though, they're threatening Foggia right away. The German line's collapsed. It's got to run back. Now, it makes sense that you'd be able to outflank. But, you know, the mixture of what amounts to some point-to-point or area-type movement in conjunction with hex movement, it's just not quite working. It's allowing, you know, there to be no defensive position on any of the maps. You can always slip around them using the transition boxes. I think they were a serious flaw in an otherwise interesting game. I mean, it's still an interesting game. It's just I'm seeing shit that shouldn't happen going on. And then here the U.S. Continuing to flow more and more troops into, and these will be coming into the south of Map B, probably, unless I think it's faster to move along the transition boxes. The transition boxes are well calculated, I think, so that, yeah, if you move along the roads here, you'd get no further than you'd get on the transition boxes. One thing that I did was I detached one of these armored units, went down, grabbed myself a couple of victory points, and pulled up. I'm not counting on that armored unit being terribly important. It'll be able to move quickly using strategic movement up here, so that's not an issue. Transition boxes, though, the big thing with them is they can let you bypass the enemy. And if the enemy's in the transition box, maybe it affects you, maybe it doesn't. And there's no easy way. There's no like, I'm in your way space between, unless there's another whole transition box. And even then, it's nothing guaranteed. You might just be able to drive right past them. Then over here, the Brits are actually attacking at less strength. I could have hit this unit much harder, but I don't trust where this one is. And so I've put a block there. I didn't want a block there. I wanted to get around, but I can't move quickly enough in this terrain, so I'll attack with limited force. I'll be able to maybe get some seaboard fire on this. I lost my artillery, though. This was kind of the big thing. The Germans killed a couple of artillery units, and that's going to impact the Allies. The ability to bypass German lines is probably a bigger factor in the game, though. And the net effect, wherever we had a chance of fighting here, that didn't happen. Didn't find them. Here we were successful, pushed through. Still, the airfield isn't under our control, but it doesn't mean much to us. And then over here, we succeeded in mostly destroying that unit. And now that puts us over on the German side of the turn. And I moved the Germans away as far as I could. These guys, wow, did they really move that far? 10. Is that a primary road? I can't ever fucking tell. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, yeah. 18, yeah, pretty much. Okay. I think I forgot one movement point because I remember being at 17 here. So these guys are fleeing back this way because the roads don't allow them to get out any other way. This terrain, and we'll see more of this, is hard to move through for the armor. So like, if I get to here, I'm in level 3, I could maybe slip through to here, but there's no roads here. I have to try to find these roads over here. Now, wait a minute, this is level 3 terrain here. This is also level 3 terrain. They look like different colors to me. So I guess this is level 3. So actually there is a way through, but it would be really hard to move through. And instead what I can do is I can run back here, grab these victory point hexes, and threaten the American port. Now, there's no way I can stop anything, so I've got to put a garrison that's bigger over on the American port, or else try to deal with them on the real map. If they ever slip into the transition boxes, it's a crapshoot whether or not I catch them. Whereas I can almost guarantee that a couple of units can pin him down, you know, and prevent him from doing any damage anywhere else. But it takes a couple of units there, and then he might slip into the transition box, and maybe I catch him and maybe I don't, you know? And he comes zooming out here and all kinds of trouble. Oh, wait for me. I also had to charge the 2 artillery units to victory points. Those are 2 points each, so they're actually a pretty big thing. They're the same as big units. The other unit, though, just slipped away and ran up to here, and no problem at all. And I'm pretty much abandoning map C at this point, which is good because once things aren't on map C in any kind of significant way, I can start maybe ignoring this terrain effects chart. It's really confusing to have two different terrain effects charts. I got the same problem in width, but there's an easier division between the two. Over here, I pulled these guys back, and the rest of them are mainly staying in the same general area. Now, there's a problem. These Brits here, they're not ready yet. They got to move to the ready box. But they could just sweep down and crush this, or they could go grab Foggia. Now that I've guarded Foggia, crushing this becomes more interesting. So now, like, these guys are basically surrounded, you know, and they really are. So I'm not really disturbed by that. It's just, it's something to keep in mind. However, the fact of these guys meant I have got to go defend Foggia. And again, that's not really disturbing. There's an empty roadway past here. The Brits are there. Are the Brits in supply? Yeah, they are, because they can get their supply from back here. Now that supply is somewhat in danger, though. But they can actually trace it coming back here, as long as, you know, I don't think you can. I think if the opponent completely controls the transit box, you can deprive supply, but I'm not sure. But obviously, you know, I've got free passage through all this shit. So that's not really a big deal. I'll have to check the supply rules on this. That may be the thing that I'm missing. There may be a way to prevent people from screwing around with you with those transit boxes due to supply. Like if there's any enemy units in it, if that blocked supply, that would change the relationship quite a bit. So for example, these guys may be getting themselves in a whole heap of trouble. The only problem is, oh look, there's enough roads, I can find supply up this way, you know, right? But at some point or another, he may be in trouble operating behind the lines. And that would actually solve that would solve some of the issues. For example, the Germans being able to come back and threaten this, and I can't do a damn thing about it. Now, out of supply doesn't mean all that much. Out of supply halves my attack strength. The Salerno garrison isn't going to do it. And once I'm on this map, there are probably plenty of routes of supply. I'd have to garrison all the transition boxes, even if they do block supply, which I don't know yet. But yeah, I had to give up my line, and I'm not sure how unreasonable that is. It's just these forces were unable to prevent these guys from just slipping around behind them. Is kind of the problem. The other thing is, it's dangerous. Like, this guy couldn't just slip into here. He'd get massacred on any roll that gave both players success, because then there would be a battle, you know. So yeah, if nobody got an evasion, the U.S. could then attack, and that would cause a problem also on double sixes. But there would be a very good chance that he's just wiped out if he goes up there. So it felt like pulling where I did made more sense. Let me look at those supply rules in relation to the transition boxes. I don't know how they're worded, or if they are, to tell you the truth. I was looking at the movement rules for the transition. I don't think there are special supply rules for the transition box, but there may be a little bit, because there is a supply section in here that's, you know, here's the problem. It's a repeat of what's in here. So I skim through it and I say, this is all the same stuff, and maybe miss something. It's less than I would like, but it is present. Enemy units being in sole occupation of a transit box prevent you from tracing supply through it, which is a deal. I mean, it really is, but it means you have to garrison every box, and it's very easily disputed. Somebody throws another, you know, a crappy unit in or whatever, and now you've got a garrison for the supply line going through there. I'm not sure how much I hate that. You know, I mean, these boxes are like the size of these maps, I think, kind of. So, does that make sense? I don't know. So, I mean, there's going to be plenty of roads going through them and everything. If you've got some forces to block the line, or to help your supply line go through, you probably can manage it. Actually, the idea of one unit, or less than like a division blocking supply going through one of these is pretty optimistic. I mean, if we look at one of these maps, there's no way that more than all my forces, or much less than all my forces, could actually cut off the supply. I might be able to cut an important link, but so long as there's a fair amount of road work going through those, and there may not be, I don't see how. I mean, that may be particularly mountainous terrain. It's towards the center, and I know that's where the mountains are the worst. But yeah, if we look at the other maps here, even the mountainous terrain here, there's a fair number of roads. It would take 4 or 5 units to block all the paths going through, the map. I don't know. All right. Oh, on the Allied turn, I forgot to roll for the wire-guided missiles. This was turn 9. They actually succeeded in killing a carrier. And that's one thing. Somewhere here. Loss per warship. 2 support and 3 victory points. I don't know where the support comes from. Let me take the victory points off and I'll look up the support, because I will obviously take it off 8th Army if I can. But the other factor is that may impact my air power. I may be dealing with even less air power than I have. I don't think it's worth paying 2 support points and 3 victory points more to assign another carrier that could get destroyed. Eventually, I will have enough airfields. If I take Foggia, I have enough airfields to fight this battle. If I don't take Foggia, I'm going to be getting crap air points for the entire, until I do take it. So it becomes a priority at this point. All right. As I start turn 10 here, and there's some interesting stuff on turn 10. One of the things I noticed, first of all, I do have an airdrop reinforcement. So we're going to see some paratrooper activity going on. This is a good weather turn. I don't know, I'm probably allowed to bring it in the port, but honestly, it may make sense to airdrop in this just to get them further ahead. I don't know how much it helps me to get them here though, but I could get them in here probably. We'll see the rules on that, because that's actually significantly far advanced. But I also have this Foggia 1-0 in here, and I don't remember why it's here. I don't think it's in the setup. It's not in the reinforcements. However, I seem to remember somewhere there being a turn 10 statement about Foggia. I've got replacements come into play starting this turn. We're going to start getting a replacement point. I don't have a good way to track that, I don't think. But anyway, this Foggia thing. I think what it is intended is, I think this is German. It's certainly not U.S. or British. So I think they're supposed to get this reinforcement in Foggia at this point, and I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but they're overstacked now. So it's not going to help much. But anyway, that's the story with that thing. Somewhere in the rules, it convinced me that comes in on turn 10 and it's not set up there. I have no clue where. Other mystery counters like this ZOC counter? I mean, what the hell? What do I need that for? Is it noted anywhere? Probably not. If it is like the LMZ or LZ or whatever, it probably tells me something else. That LZ, I think, is landing zone. I think it's meant to represent something for the variable campaign game that doesn't exist. I really, the development side of this game is such a failure. And I don't know, I don't know who to point fingers to, right? I mean, you never really know. The one place you can say this should have never come completely out was the developer should bring a game to the publisher, to someone on the publisher's staff who says, "Yep, you have presented me with a game that makes sense, that is good." And, it doesn't have to be the Don Greenwood level of hands-on intervention. We can see that doesn't work terribly well. But someone has to be giving us the green light for this is ready to go. And, the relationship there is a weird one, because it might not be, the developer might be saying, my game's not ready, I'm getting results back from playtesting that I need to address these. And the publisher says, nope, it looks good. Just looking at the components or something like that, and looking at the rulebook and saying, no, it looks fine. And if you bring them in a rulebook that's, got crossouts and everything all over it, they say, oh, you're right. That's obviously not the level at which that decision can be made. So again, I don't know who made the decision to pull the trigger on this and get it published as is. Whoever that was did a great disservice to what's actually an interesting design. It's flawed in some ways, but it's interesting. And to anybody who bought the damn thing. And that's, to me, a core problem with MMP. Because the buck's got to stop there, because they're the ones getting the bucks. And we're going back to using little components from, I think this is the Falling Sky extra pieces that I got. To mark, these are going to be German infantry replacements. These are going to be British infantry replacements. That's what comes out on this turn. They say per nationality, but then they seem to specify. I'm going to go with the specification instead of the implied rule, which seems to sound like you get a step of each kind for each nationality or something. I got to be careful though. If I want to, it's going to cost me a support to airdrop, two support to airdrop that regiment. Maybe I bring it into the port, because maybe it's not worth that. Again, strategic movement is fast. I'm going to have to do this multiple times for the 82nd, and I don't have much support. I don't know. But anyway, what do we have here? Oh, what's this? 15, 5 to 15. Is that the turn that it happens in? I don't know. Maybe the scenario or something. What do we got here? Some of these don't apply. So, for example, exited units. Receive replacement. So a replacement point will cost me a victory point and a point of support. In the case of the Allies, I've got some excess support, but I got to be real careful, and the Brits are kind of low. I can certainly take it over on the 8th Army, though. But again, it comes with a victory point cost. And what are my victory point totals that I need to reach? I don't know. Where's the victory conditions? Where's the scenario? It doesn't actually exist, but I guess it's here. So I'm going to need to break 53 victory points to get even a marginal victory. Right now, I'm sitting at like 15. Foggia may be worth 15 more. That's 30. If the Germans leave, I think I can't win. I think the only way I can win is by fighting them. Am I missing something? I mean, they could conceivably bring in replacements. I'm going to look to see if they're allowed to leave the game, because I think that they may be able to give me the entire board as long as they don't lose many units and win the game, which would be disappointing. I don't know if I'll play it out if that's the case. Just to make things even more fun. The reinforcement section here. There is airborne reinforcement in this game. It has special rules which have to do with you have to pay support points and everything for it. I think I can look. Maybe it's wrong, but and they have special rules for seaborne. I'm looking for the reinforcements. It may be somewhere else. Like I'm seeing several places it may be, but yeah, here I was. The reinforcement section has seaborne reinforcements. It does not have any rules on airborne reinforcements. Now, maybe they're squirreled away somewhere else. And again, the fact they repeat most of the rules from there and here makes that particularly annoying. But yeah, I don't know if we're just using standard rules or if there's something special in place. What there's not is in the reinforcement section anything special about it, even though there are special rules regarding the support point cost and victory point cost for dropping, or support point cost for dropping the airborne reinforcements on the chart, which may not be represented in the rulebook. It may. This isn't promising. The reinforcement section in the base game doesn't handle special rules for reinforcements like airborne and seaborne reinforcements. And I don't think that it handles airborne operations, which means if there's any rules in it, it's here. It was not in the support section. I checked that. It's here in airborne missions, and we don't have a special section on it. There was rules for this in Sicily. It may be airdropped. There's nothing about that I can use them otherwise, so I may have to airdrop them in this game and not be able to use them in the port, which means they come with an immediate support cost if I want to use them. Ouch. I assume airdrop covers both of the air missions, so I'd have to pay that for reinforcements or for an air assault. There's a hint in the airborne rules that you can actually land the 82nd Airborne as a paratroop assault. It's listed as only a reinforcement, but since Sicily, and again, if you didn't have Sicily, you might not be able to make these connections. Since Sicily specified when airborne units come in, that's really the only time they can airborne assault. And that may be there. Basically, the collision of trying to get the Sicily rules into 2 rule books, for the design for this, and then not enough development work to get it into a smoothed over fashion, may have caused that issue. Who knows? I'm going to play it as though I can either drop them as reinforcements or as airdrop. I'm not sure how much these rules actually specify the difference between the two. I may have to go look at my Sicily rules to come up with the answer to that. I'm not sure there's much difference between the two. Airborne reinforcements in Sicily have a different chart. Safer in some ways, not in others, than a paradrop assault. For this, the only real differential is airborne reinforcements are within 2 hexes of a friendly unit and not in an enemy zone of control, along with terrain effects. Which means I can't put them very far. You know, I could probably drop them in here. I don't know what the rules on that shit are. However, I could make a drop to try to get Beretta. Hey, there's a scenario about Race for Beretta, which is on the map. Awesome. I could probably get them in there. These don't have zones going into there. There's not a lot of troops there. I can get 1 regiment into play if I'm lucky, and then start bringing reinforcements in. I might not want to put it too close to the sea because they could fall into the ocean. I probably want to see what the prevailing winds are first, but there's only 1 chart, and there's no modifiers that I see having to do with whether you're doing an airborne assault or just landing reinforcements. They're equally dangerous. Obviously, if you're doing an airborne assault, you're closer to enemy units if the Sicily rules apply. Again, I didn't wade through to see if everything was there. I'm just thinking things off the top of my head as I go. You know, I'm like, oh, look up this rule, think about it, talk about it, and I probably should have thought more before I spoke. That's always the case, isn't it? At least for me. Then I can worry about looking that rule up and, you know, do I have an issue there? Is that in place? Whatever. But, you know, you're kind of catching the me of, okay, well, let's do this, and then maybe it won't work. You know, that's just the world I live in, isn't it? Have some things that aren't in the right place on the track. Yeah, I just don't fucking know. All right. Here's the difference, the only difference. Paratroop Reinforce in Light Mistral have different scatter and loss results. And that is close to what Sicily does, but Sicily doesn't do it based on the weather. They have I mean, they have a weather effect, but they also have I believe, different charts for the loss and scatter. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm misremembering that. I don't know. It's just a pain in the ass. All right, so I guess I'm gonna try to drop him somewhere over here and see what happens. And let's see. Where am I gonna pick to drop him? Okay, so the biggest scatter I can get, the weather's good, it's a paratroop. The biggest scatter I can get is a die roll of scatter. The prevailing wind ended up that way, which means if I'm here, let's go from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can we drop him here? This is level 2 terrain, so yes. So let's find a unit. Let's count that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could drop him here, right? I think here is the safe place. Oh, I can drop him here. Okay. So that's pretty safe. And now I roll 1 die for possible losses. And I get a 2. No loss. He's not disrupted or anything, so he'll be able to move. And a possible scatter. 5. He's not on target. He scatters a hex away. And it's, or a number of hexes away, and it's there. And that puts me in a position where I can get into Beretta fairly easily. Over the victory points, I notice each airfield is also worth a point. I haven't been accumulating those. Yeah, we only have 4. I guess I should add them in too. I don't think that's affected anything too seriously in terms of the wherever the hell the variable reinforcements are, because they basically went from the bottom table to the top table. So I'm going to ignore them for now. If it ever comes to a point where we're on the edge of something important, we'll get there. But yeah, we're looking at 49 points for the whole board. The Axis could abandon the entire board. If they can get off without taking any losses, they win the game. Assuming they can withdraw. I still haven't found a rule that says they can withdraw. The best I can see in the campaign scenario that the Axis can do is try to find some place they can hide. It's very, very unlikely. So here's the victory conditions for this game as far as I can see. It's very unlikely that the Axis will not lose a few units and get picked off. But if they could manage to get all their units, say, into this transition box, it would be real hard to get a good enough odds ratio on them again and again that you could really hurt them. The problem, well, the reason it has to be this one is this is the only one that can trace supply kind of off map. So that's where the issue is. It looks like the Germans absolutely cannot leave this map, and as forces come on, and now you are allowed to delay them indefinitely, but as forces come on, there are more and more victory points that you can gain as the Allies, and therefore you don't want to bring your reinforcements on, perhaps. The thing is, there are enough victory points on the board in terms of the units that are there. There's no way to escape. For whatever reason, the Germans are ordered to go die here in southern Italy with no strategic purpose in mind, and that sounds like Hitler's type of plan. So, yeah. But you don't want to fight for terrain. You really don't. Give up the terrain as quickly as you can. Find yourself someplace good to be defending. This would be probably my suggestion. Try to defend right here as fast as possible. Let the Allies have the tip of the boot. Let them have all the way up. Don't give them Foggia. I still haven't figured out what the +5 to +15 means. Again, it's buried somewhere in the rules. Maybe it's in some of the scenarios and it's not in the Grand Campaign. I don't know. Maybe it's not worth anything in the Grand Campaign, although it wouldn't say +5, +15, then it would say 0. But Foggia is worth 5 points on its own, period. So, indeed, it's included only in the additional scenarios. Here's where it is in the long shot to Barletta. And it may be in some of the others as well, but that's the one where I see it. Oh, here's the LZs. Race for Casino has those. You know, again, be useful if the campaign game actually was addressed with the same kind of level of information. Would be nice if this chart indicated which scenarios the different victory conditions applied to that are special. You know, like if this said only and gave the reference number to it or something. So I wouldn't be looking at this and saying, what the fuck? I'm not sure though, because I think the support cost of 10 is for all scenarios. So actually back to the game. What have we done? The Brits moved to try to cut his capabilities off. Further and further he goes back. Well, the 8th Army may just have to keep chasing him. I temporarily had to create a little line here with those markers that I did not do to allow the US to go here, but you know, that gets set each turn. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, the line is the transition boxes, which I think means that the 8th Army is allowed to move into them as well as the US, but I'm not positive about that. Either way, I'm not planning on that. I'm planning on getting rid of that unit before any problems there. I grabbed this. I'm leaving this alone. I would have gone down there, but there's some Canadians that are coming in down there, so they'll have to do that. A lot of play on the transition boxes. We're going to have fights, I think, here, and there's actually 2 sets of Germans, one in each transition box there. Not here. These guys... Oh, fuck. Oh, no, these guys are... Yeah, these guys are coming out. The Germans are already out. Over here, I'm picking on some of the rear guard, trying to get it cleared out of the way, and there's a monitor that may be able to fire. And that was rather painful for you as much as me, I'm sure. The attack down here was successful. The Brits pushed forward. It wasn't a good attack. This wasn't a good attack either, and it was not successful. The US had to take 2 hits. They could have taken a retreat instead of one of the hits, but the problem with a retreat is they have to go back to where they came from. First of all, I'm not absolutely certain where they came from, right? Actually, I am. They came from here, but there's no way of marking that, so it's conceivable the way I play that I would have completely forgotten that and had to take the losses. But I don't want to go back here. That's going to be exceedingly expensive to get back into the board. I think the Germans are going to run away. If they don't, I've got reinforcements coming that can get in there, and maybe I can get better odds. I tried to use my air point there, it didn't work. I tried to use the boat here, it didn't work. The biggie though is these guys are in play. They could actually go join the transition box as well if they want it. That port is damaged at level 1. I've got the airfield there as well. Everything is underway. The real question is, what do the Germans want to do? Well, they want to survive, you know. Now, here's the problem. I can't just give up the board. I've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points versus maybe 6. I've got 4 extra points. I'm at like that 53 points. I'm right around the point where if all 47 points were given up, the Allies would win the game. And on top of that, the German units are probably going to take losses because there's advantages to attacking. So I can't not counterattack anywhere. I've got to either hold on to Foggia, which I don't think is going to happen, but or cause some damage to the allies. Now I've caused some, and I've got to cause a little bit more. And that's just kind of giving you a feel of what the game devolves into. It's not precisely what, you know, I expected. I thought I wanted to defend things. I thought, I don't know. I don't know what I thought. If I could just get off the map, it would be great, but I can't. But I think trying to defend this land was actually the right thing to do. The problem is these guys are at risk. If they lose this, they kind of lose their supply source at this point. So I may have to go into here. I may be attacked there, and then I may have to cluster and try to defend Foggia. It's time for the German turn. They have to make the hard choice of whether or not they want to expend some of their support and victory points to get a replacement point. Those replacement points could be really, really valuable for upgrading some of their units and maybe causing a little bit more damage, but it does increase their commitment to the board. So not only do they pay the victory points, but they could also lose more due to losing units. It's a tough, tough call. Around the craziness of the transit boxes, this German unit is drawing supply back this way. If I get in here, I probably have supply again a different way, although I won't be able to supply through the transit boxes there, unless the Allies garrison all the transit boxes. I'm in supply. If I'm not in supply, it's not that terrible. So I think I'm going to keep going that way, which was my initial plan. Over here in the transit box, the way I'm reading transit box combat is that it's up to the player whose turn it is, as it would normally be. So I'm not going to be forced to attack. But if these guys leave this box, which they can, they're kind of abandoning these guys to their fate. And they might get wiped out by that huge US force. So I don't feel like I can escape. However, I'm in danger of getting completely cut off and having to fight my way out, which is also not pleasant. But, you know, if I shift down here, the US shifts next. I don't think there are enough US forces in play down here, or enough that are able to get onto this map to cause me a serious problem. So I think I'm going to stay there and try to defend that. Elsewhere, geez, I don't know. You know, these guys are going to come out and swarm all over Foggia. These guys have to start backing up, I think. You know, it's just getting to be a painful, painful world there. And I think this is the position we're in. I didn't fucking look to see if I wanted to buy a German unit, but these guys were not all safe to upgrade. These guys are. Let me just see what I got here. That's I don't know what those are, right? They're mechanized units. I think I need armored points for them, but they don't have the combined arms bonus built into them. But they're not just shipping men in, so I just don't know. Maybe that's explained in the replacement rules. This is really getting frustrating compared to so basically there's a lot of little tweaks that are different that I don't feel add anything to this, although I may be mistaken, because some of the things, like the biggest thing that I think changed this game from the Victory in the West games, is there are very few units on a big board. So you can't have a continuous line. You can't defend the way you could in Grenade and in Patton's Third Army, and to some extent in Sicily. Sicily was also more about getting the roads, etc. So it's more, but it's like Sicily, but more sparsely populated, so it's even harder to maintain any kind of static defense. I felt like static defenses were quite possible in Sicily. Here, I just don't have the capacity for them. There's just too much space for the units that are involved. That feels like the major difference between the older series and this series. Not all the special rules that have been put in place, some of which, add details that are realistic, some of which, like the transition boxes, are abstractions that maybe have problems. Some of those, but most of the special rules added to this, I don't feel really are the issue that's creating this different flavor of game. The different flavor of game is just the sparsity of units on the board. Just change that. Change the scale of the game for the amount of units, and you end up without solid line battles that feel like 1970s era operational games. And now we've got something that feels at times more like an OCS style game, but with the big difference of there's some real flaws in the system that don't work. But anyway, I think this is what we've got. I'll check those replacement rules, but otherwise we're sending this one up. By the way, some of you follow me on Facebook or friends, whatever. Can't really tell the difference, except that those who just follow me, I don't see your posts, right? Because we're not friends. But a lot of you, like a lot of times, I accept friends, and then I'm like, well, most of my stuff's public anyway. I don't think I do anything that's not public, so it doesn't make a difference to me. But there's a fair amount of stuff that I'm looking at people's stuff and I'm like, you guys aren't posting a lot that's very interesting, and I see stuff that I'm absolutely not interested in, things about personal lives of people that I don't interact with at all or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'll stop following you, but we're still friends, which is sort of, I don't know. Unless you have things to share with me, I probably put you in that bucket. Yeah, and I don't mean with me specifically. Usually the people that I stay subscribed to are people who post lots of funny memes more than anything else. But yeah, what I was going to say was, for those who are on the Facebook type stuff, yeah, I posted something about my bones. My weekly dancing has been kind of a problem, and yesterday it kind of caught up with me, and I didn't get to play at all because of it. And just I get these micro fractures from doing leaps and stuff, and at this age, they take a little longer to heal anyway. But and I'm talking about basically the shin splints, right? Except I get them in my feet too and other places. But this last week, they haven't healed well at all. And so I've been kind of having trouble all week. But I kind of figured out what was wrong, why I wasn't healing, because I was listening to something while I was sleeping. So I guess I just wanted to say that because it's one of the reasons why there's been a little less play than I was counting on. I was kind of expecting to get this done by the end of this weekend. I'm not sure that's going to be the case. Anyway, I don't know what I just don't want to let it go. I don't know. All right, bye.